Diolch yn fawr. Right, I'm going to talk about myself, which is not something I like doing. I would much rather be in a dark room without these lights on. I've worked for the last 25 years or so as a theatre technician, but I think things started at an early age. I was born into a theatrical family, maybe. My grandfather, who's in the middle, in the front row there, was a playwright living in Rhondda Valleys, and one of his plays, Cwm Glo, which is the Coal Valley, it translates as, gained fame for all the wrong reasons. It's a play about a miner, a struggling miner who sends his daughter to Cardiff to work as a prostitute. And in the 1940s, I don't think that was something that people would look on as a reputable career choice, maybe. So it made headlines in the Daily Mirror, which was good, because it meant that loads of people turned up to see the play. It was resurrected about 20 years ago by Cwmni Theatr Gwynedd in Bangor, which is when it was last toured. One of the first things I remember, and I don't think my mother would appreciate me saying this, but I remember seeing shafts of light coming through the window. And obviously, light only travels, when light travels, you can only see light when it hits something. When it hit the dust, it created that magical feeling in me, I think. And I think that's when I started having an interest in light and theatre to a greater degree. In school, we would perform in a number of, there was always opportunities to perform. I just included that for embarrassment value more than anything. That was in Glanllen Urdd camp in 1987 or something. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is pictures, photographs of my early career are pretty non-existent because no one carried mobile phones and, well, we didn't have any mobile phones apart from big Nokia bricks. So early days, school productions, chapel productions, performing mostly. I left school under a bit of a cloud. I went back to resit my O-levels, and after failing my resits, the headmistress told my mother that I'd be better off not returning to school, which was a bit of a kick up the bum, I think. I was going to go as a trainee technician to the Castle Theatre in Aberystwyth. That fell through, so I went to volunteer for a local theatre company, Cwmni Arad Goch, who predominantly taught theatre and education or young people's theatre. I did quite a bit of volunteering for them, gaining more experience off the stage, helping set building, helping Rhodri with the lighting. And yeah, volunteering, which is, I think, where everything started to go well. I then went to Bangor Tech in the late 80s. I joined the Urdd Drama Company, which was like a 2-week residential school. And then we toured around theatres in Wales. As an actor, I wasn't much good as an actor, and I think I had maybe one line, maybe one word in the play. But it was good fun. And that also, I think, fed some kind of nomadic desire to tour, I don't know. I'm making all this up now. And Gwion Technical College, all the pictures I've got from this period are just random people in photograph. There's nothing whatsoever to do with being a technician. But it gave me an opportunity to meet young adults and like-minded people, I suppose, people with an interest in theatre. And it gave me there was a lot less emphasis on the academic. There was a lot more experimentation with technology, with lighting, with sound. We worked closely with Theatr Gwynedd in Bangor and their set building operation in the Tabernacle in Bangor. And I think it just fed that love in theatre and the backstage aspects of it, really. I then went to university, which at the top there says a blip. It was a bit of a blip because I, again, found the same kind of feelings that I had in school, really. Academia wasn't for me. One way or another, I managed to get a degree, but at the end of the first year, you know, I nearly dropped out of university, but we were offered a 3-month exchange trip to America, which was mostly funded, so I stayed on because of that cash cow, I think. But it was a good thing, because it meant going to a university in America, a university with facilities I'd never seen before. The theatre they had there would put theatre wearing in Aberystwyth to shame. And it gave us an opportunity again to experiment, to play, to learn, but an emphasis on that practical, I think. So I returned, and by the time I'd returned to college, the English stream of the theatre studies course were offering a theatre design module, but the Welsh stream didn't. So I had a bit of a clash with tutors because I was studying theatre studies in Welsh and I wanted to do theatre design in English, and I was called by one person a traitor, which I find is a bit bizarre. But I won. It wasn't competition, but I did win. And I volunteered again. There's a theatre in Carmarthen. Oh, I wasn't going to mention where I went to college. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's in Carmarthen. It's Trinity College in Carmarthen. And the theatre, the Lyric Theatre, was run professionally but staffed by volunteers. So I went there predominantly as a follow spotter, which was the dustiest, hottest, worst job you could ever do in a theatre. But I enjoyed it, really. But it also gave me an opportunity to play with moving lights for the first time when a TV company came in to do a production for S4C. And I think it was the icing on the cake of desire or something that kind of clarified in my mind that I wanted to be a theatre technician or a technician. So just before graduating, I applied for a job with Theatr Powys in Mid Wales, who were looking for Welsh language technicians or stage managers, a stage manager to tour a community play. A friend drove me to the interview because I couldn't drive, which is pretty rubbish for a touring stage manager, really. But they offered me the job. I don't know why, probably because no one else applied, possibly, as long as I passed my test. So I had 2 months to pass my test, and I failed. But by which time, they didn't have much choice. So one of the actors offered to do the driving. They offered me a second contract after that, as long as I passed my test, but I hadn't had much chance to practice. I failed my test 4 times. I passed on the 5th time whilst I was working for another company. I suppose I'd had enough of me by then. But they did invite me back after I passed my test. And I think it gave me... Paul Brown, who was the production manager with Theatre Powys, taught me one lesson that, and it's that old thing of play hard and work hard. And he said that it's all right to play hard, but you have to work hard. And I think I have worked hard throughout my working life, really. But working with him was the start of something, you know, quite special. Having that mentor, I suppose, who overlooked the fact that I couldn't drive. And that was the start of going out into the real world, really. Sorry, these slides, I've done them all in Welsh without thinking. So I'm just translating what's on the screen for you. I've been really, really lucky to have had continuous work since 1995. After that first job, after leaving college, the 2 first companies were Theatre Powys and then Company of Ran Wen, who were based in Bangor, or just outside Bangor. But I met a girl who I married. She went to college in Nottingham, so we both moved to Nottingham to live, where I started working because I needed to pay the rent. I started working in a shoe shop and quickly realised that I needed to sort myself out and find something better when I turned up for work one Sunday morning, extremely hungover, and had to run out and leave the shop empty with one customer with really stinking feet trying on shoes and me in the alleyway outside puking. That wasn't good. So that was, you know, I then applied for a job as a sound technician with a company called Hawthorne Theatrical. I didn't get the job as a sound technician, but they saw something in me. They offered me a job as a warehouse technician, where I worked for 3 years whilst my partner was in college, going from the warehouse out on jobs once in a while to then progressing to be a full-time site technician, where I quickly learned that, you know, whatever happens, you've got to take the shortest route possible to get the best possible outcome or the best show possible. You know, that show must go on, whatever happens. One of the greatest example of that, I think, is this picture here. Is a corporate product launch for Oki printers that we did in Prague. It was a 20-minute show with a production budget of over £1 million. We flew out. There were 2 Arctic trucks that went out to Prague. We had a crew that arrived before us to unload the truck and started building the trusses. And by the time we arrived 12 hours later, we were expecting to have most of the work done, but they hadn't started because all the truss had egg joiners, which were still in Leicestershire, because the warehouse hadn't sent them to Prague. So there was a frantic 4 o'clock in the morning phone call, and Martin Hawthorne, the company director, flew a member of staff out to Prague with boxes of these eggs. And we finished the production rehearsals 5 minutes before doors opened for this £1 million product launch for Oki printers, which is, yeah, scary, I think. Yeah. So these are just pictures of a set that cost £1 million and a lot of eggs. I then when my partner graduated from Nottingham, we moved to Cardiff. I started working there as a studio technician for a television production company called Boomerang, quite similar to this studio, in fact, where I worked for a year. But I wasn't that interested in vision mixing and lighting the programs that they were doing. So I kind of started doing a bit of moonlighting and going back to doing corporate work. And I spent a couple of years doing gigs, corporate events. I don't know if you heard of a singer called Kate LeBon. That's her band there, which we did a gig with. Atomic Kitten. I mean, I've got pictures here that people have probably never heard of. Atomic Kitten. They were big at one time. Rubbish, but big. And a lot of TV moving light operating work with bands like McCluskey.
And here now the players out. They put the hard in hardcore. They're the Cardiff-based Walkers McCluskey with the hell with good intentions. See you next week.
I included these just to have an idea of, you know, the kind of work that was involved, a lot of noise. And Terravision. I don't know if people heard of Terravision.
One said, good evening, I am your host. And tonight I have a monster view. Quite literally, it's the dog's proverbials. So strap yourselves in and buckle up, it's Terravision. And do you want to go faster?
Converted, sorry, just before all the noise starts. It was converted from Corona pop producing plant into a pop factory for pop music. And I worked there for a couple of years with just loads of bands, and Posh Spice, Spice Girls had recently split up, and it's quite a big deal to have Posh Spice in the Rhondda Valleys. But unfortunately, all this corporate and long hours of television work meant that me and my wife split up, and I kind of decided I wanted a new challenge. So I left Cardiff and came up to North Wales to work with Cymru Fran Wen again. And they did a main stage production of Stags and Hens by Willie Russell, which we toured, and I designed the lights for, which is what I've been doing mostly since then, really, for the last 15 years or so, working as lighting designer, stage manager, and then as a technical director in theatre. Combining music and theatre, I mean, lighting gigs, I think, is quite possibly one of my favourite things to do. But I think the time has come for theatre technicians, or technicians in the creative industries in general, to be able to turn their hands to anything within reason. There are still lighting designers, sound designers, set designers, obviously, but as technicians, I think multitasking is where it's at the moment. I certainly rig a lot of sound equipment and AV equipment now, but music, I think, and gigs is what I've always thought of as my main love in this industry, I think. I'm working with people like Griff Rhys from Super Furry Animals, Big Leaves. These bands, Big Leaves are a band I toured with quite a lot whilst they were still going, as a lighting designer for them. And Gorky's Zygotic Monkey, I don't know if you've heard of them. I worked with them, well, over a number of years, but one of the biggest things was 10,000 people in a big top tent in Glastonbury. And we arrived on the tour bus through fields and seas of mud early on a Sunday morning, having done gigs in Bristol the night before, sleeping on the tour bus, and spending the day going backwards and forwards from the front of house position, programming lights in between other bands' sets, because Gorky's were the headliners. So that's how, it was quite a busy day. Loads of vegetable curries, which was nice. And no scrumpy cider, unfortunately. But it was brilliant. I'm just going to dwell on the past, the glory days. Melys, another band. I mean, there's a lot of Welsh bands from the 90s, I suppose, who carried on into the 2000s, or the noughties, whatever it's called, I don't know. Melys, they were kind of on the verge of great things. They've recently reformed and have been touring with a band called The Wedding Present, who I loved in the 80s. It's not all about the past, but MC Mapon, I don't know why I've included this, Gwion Llwyd. She's recently released a Cornish language album. She's fluent in Welsh, English, Cornish, Irish, Breton, and has single-handedly kick-started a cultural revolution, I think, in Cornwall, making people more interested in learning the language. It's a phenomenal album. I'm not on commission, but if you do get the chance to listen to it, it really is worth listening to, even though I don't understand a word. Well, I do, because there's a lot of similar words in Cornish to Welsh language. So, the present. For some reason, I've put down keeping it simple, effective, and influence. I've certainly been influenced by a lot of things throughout, this career of doing different things, predominantly lighting, but a lot of production management as well for theatre companies. And influences, I think, are what helps us be unique, maybe. This is a production that we did in... let me just go and turn the volume down a bit. I think I'll just leave that playing in the background because it's nice and calming. It's a Pontio, where I work in Bangor. We're given a joint commission between ourselves and Theatr Clwyd to create a new seasonal production, a Christmas production for young people, for children. And it was based on a folk tale, and it was called A Llawer Cryf, the Lion and the Cobbler, that's the one. And we built a tent in the Studio Theatre in Pontio, which was supposed to represent a circus big top tent. And 2 performers. It was really, really simple, but I think it's one of the things I'm most proud of, because I think part of the beauty of the production is its simplicity, and it kind of feeds into that keeping it simple thing, really. Simple can be really effective. Anyway, what next? I don't know. We live in a time where it's really difficult for theatre companies and theatres and the creative industries in general. We continue to innovate. Pontio have started putting on productions ourselves, which is really nice to be able to work on something creatively instead of working on other people's creations. And going back to that multitasking thing, I think the future is that way inclined. Obviously, we will need people specialising in lighting, sound, set design, as I said, but we need people who can turn their hands to a lot of other things. And I think that's true in general. We see a lot of actors now multitasking in the way that they have other means of income, because not everyone will be as successful as Jack Nicholson or someone, but a lot of people will. And I think the next thing is to keep on dreaming and striving for and remembering the dust coming through the window and why it started in the first place. So I've rabbited on for half an hour. I didn't think I would be able to. I hope there was something that was there that was interesting.